Hi everybody, this is Craig Tanner for The Mindful Eye and the Daily Critique. We have two images today that were both submitted by Jan, who's an advanced photographer from Seattle, and it's two versions of the same image. So we have this color version, and then we have a sepia version. And Jan says that he shot these images on location at an abandoned dairy farm. This is a location he had worked with before, and he had also worked with this model before in the studio. He saw an image online that inspired him to create this shot, to return to the location with this model, and he was going for this sort of edgy look that he had seen in this other photograph. Jan shot this with a Canon Mark III 1DS full frame sensor camera. He used an 85 f1.2 Canon lens, and that's a great lens for these kinds of portraits, sort of full body or full body. And at ISO 125 shot this almost wide open at f2.5 and exposed the file for 1/160th of a second. Jan also added some lighting here. He's got natural light coming from these windows. Jan added on a 600 watt second battery powered pack here a head that is being modified by a beauty dish, and it's over here to camera right. We'll talk more about the lighting in just a minute. And Jan had some interesting remarks in the question and comment part of the submission form. Jan says first he'd like to know about the framing here relative to the crop. He likes the environment of the dairy farm, but he also wants the model to come forward, and he just had a question about would I crop this anymore. And Jan also wanted to know what I thought about the difference between this color version and the sepia. Jan says that he prefers the sepia version, but that a lot of people that he has shared these images with prefer the color version and wanted us to weigh in on that. So let's get right into it. I love both versions. I really like the way Jan is working this location. I love the way he's found this spot. He's moved the model into this negative space. He's using this really beautiful framing. It has a great sense of visual unity and harmony, but it's not static. You've got more information over here. It's darker over here, lighter over here, more contrast over here. I love the rhythm. The idea of the windows. This looks like maybe a window into another space, not outside, but just into another area maybe of a barn. And I love what that's doing. It's rhyming the overall shape of the framing in the shot. It's also creating a real powerful feeling of depth on this diagonal. I think that works really well. I think her pose is great. You know, if Jan's going for this edgy look, it almost looks like a boxer standing there. She's looking right at us, real intense look, just sort of a dead on the even expression, dead on the even tilt of the head, almost fist here. But that is combined with most of her weight on this leg, which naturally creates this sort of feeling of an S-curve with the body overall. And that rhymes the sort of elegance of the quality of line in the hair. And it's really neat that even though we have this kind of edgy confrontational kind of pose, and you've got all these straight up and down lines, you have this one bit of movement that I think really adds a lot to the image. And this is one takeaway just in a real basic sense you could get from today's critique. You're photographing people, you want to get away from static. Just having people put more weight on one leg than the other could be a powerful, subtle but powerful thing. I think the lighting here is really interesting. I wanted to talk about that. You know, in a traditional sense, if we were shooting some kind of portrait and we had this window light, the traditional thing, kind of scheme scenario might say, okay, you take the beauty dish and you put it right over the camera, shoot right under it, and it's a little bit higher than the camera, but it's coming straight in, and it just serves to fill the shadows that are being created from the window light. It's more of a classic fill light, and that would also get more light into the eyes. It almost looks like Jan has not only moved this, what would typically kind of be thought of as a fill light, over to the right so that it drives shadows across the dominant feeling of light moving in from the windows. It also seems like it's up pretty high, so there's shadows that are dropping down into the eye. And that just leads me to sort of make the point that, you know, we can talk about traditional lighting, we can talk about classic lighting, we can talk about great lighting, we can talk about bad lighting, but there really isn't any such thing. Lighting is completely relative to what you're trying to say. As a photographic artist, it's relative to the kind of mood you're trying to set. And so in this case, you know, having shadows that cross each other, creating real strong drop shadows in the eye, if we're going for an edgy look, I think is a great choice, and it's working well in the image. When it comes to comparing these two versions, I'm with Jan. I end up liking this version better. The interesting thing about this version to me is that it goes away from this original concept of being edgy. To me, this is sort of edgy kind of fashion, casual fashion. This is like a Western lifestyle shoot or something. It just has a totally different feeling to it. And so from a subjective standpoint, I like this better because I wouldn't go here as much as an artist, to say the least. This is more lifestyle, which is kind of more of what I would create shooting with people. But from an objective standpoint, I like this image better because I feel like this more open shadow that you're getting in the sepia version is giving more of an elegant quality of line to the model. What happens for me in this representation of this version is that the dark coat here blends with these heavy shadows both here and over here, and it's not just a matter of sort of losing this kind of elegant feeling of movement of line. It also starts to create an imbalance for me just in terms of the archetype of the shape of this person. The torso starts to expand and it starts to look really heavy relative to the proportion of her legs, and it also starts to make me feel like the face is not as elegant. In the other version, where we see the outline of the torso, it's sort of amazing what that does to my eye in terms of quality of line on the model and also overall proportional balance. And the other thing that's happened here is this open up those shadows on the face. It's a completely different lighting pattern. The eyes come forward more now. You don't get the sense of the cross light as much anymore. If I was going to work with this version, I personally would open it way up. And the interesting thing is, once I do this, I think the viewer is going to still get the sense of kind of this edgy fashion because, part of this treatment to me seems to be that the background almost seems monochrome, and then this seems like a lot of color for sure. I mean, you've got red, most powerful color on the color wheel. It plays off of blue, the red hair, the real heavy black of the eyeliner and the eyelashes, the black and the belt. The red and black together is so powerful. To me, if we come in and do just a big curves adjustment and go for more of a fashion look on the skin, just in terms of kind of this blown out look, you've still got the edgy feeling with the color and with the pose and all that, but the model to me ends up looking a lot more elegant in the space. And from here, I don't think that I would do much of anything else to the image. I mean, what's interesting to me is that in the other version, this starts to be sort of too high contrast, and I start thinking about how this gets heavy. But here, this is so powerful with this color sitting in this sort of monochrome space that she just keeps coming forward, and it is a lot edgier. So having these things that aren't quite so tidied up and having some areas that kind of fall off a little bit, to me, work a lot better. When I go to this version, it's so much softer and so much more unified to begin with that I start to think about pushing it in the direction of more unity. And so I just created a layer where I continued these lines so that you don't have the fall off here, so that you have more of a unified framing from left to right. I got rid of this little diagonal here. I toned this way down so that it doesn't compete with now this much softer feeling of the face, and also tone this down back here. And I'm going to turn that layer on. You'll see that I did one other thing to this version. Because it's so much softer and it's not as edgy, I skewed this, obviously, to the left to keep these lines in a space where they feel a little bit more cohesive and unified with the outside edge of the frame, and also to keep her from feeling like she's a little bit off balance in this direction. Again, this seems so much more unified and so much more cohesive to begin with that I'm just kind of pushing it in that direction in every aspect. And here I think I would crop this version. I didn't mean to do that. Let's get rid of that guide. I think I would crop this version just ever so slightly from the top, something like that, and leave it there. Main thing I want people to hear me say is I love both of these versions. Jan has done a great job here of coming up with a concept, working with this location in a beautiful way. He's got a beautiful model. I think her gesture, her pose, and all that's been managed in a great way. Just a really overall beautiful portrait, and we want to thank Jan for being generous enough to share these images with us on the Mindful Eyes Daily Critique. Would love to hear your comments about this critique. Thanks a lot, everybody.